So now that we saw what a glacier is, we're going to talk about where that we can find them and what are the two main ingredients to create a glacier. So that here is a map of the world, and that represents annual mean temperature. So how cold or warm is it during the year? And as you can see, the closer you go to the equator, so in the middle here, the warmer it gets. And the farther away you go from it, so the closer to the poles you go and the colder it gets. So we are here in Alaska, and as we can see, we are in blue. Blue on this map means that the annual mean temperatures are below freezing, and that's the first very important ingredient to create a glacier. You need annual mean temperatures that are below freezing. So if you have a snowflake that falls, sorry, you increase your chances that this snowflake doesn't melt away, and eventually more snowflakes will accumulate and form ice after a bit of time. So there are two ways to reduce temperature on this planet. Either you go to the poles and then you get less solar radiation, less solar illumination, so the temperature goes down, or you can go up in altitude. So you go in the mountains, which explains why we have glaciers in the Himalaya and in the Andes, where you have those blue spots, even though it's pretty warm around. So it's only because we have super high mountains there. In general, where glaciers are melting, they can't appear again because it means that all the snow that falls will melt away and won't have time to accumulate and form ice. So this is just a map showing all the glaciers on this planet. Every point in pink, represents a glacier, and we really have them everywhere, even in Africa, but we only have 3 glaciers. They're pretty small and are gonna disappear very soon. I can't say how soon, of course, but yeah, by 2050, if you have anything remaining, I would be surprised. So glaciers can really form everywhere at high latitudes or at high altitude. But there's a second ingredient aside from temperature that is important to make glacier, and we'll see that a bit later. So yeah, you can find glaciers in tropical and equatorial places. The combination is that the requirements is that you need high altitude, so close temperature, but you need also something else. Why in Fairbanks don't we have any glacier? If you look outside right now, you might see a lot of snow and be like, okay, the mean annual temperature in Fairbanks is definitely below 0. Why don't we have glaciers? It's not a question of mean annual temperature. It's not a question of precipitation. We have snow on the ground and we actually have a lot sometimes. The main thing is that in Fairbanks, during the summer, it gets so hot that everything melts away. So that ingredient, the mean annual temperature, is just an indication, but it's not an absolute truth. Even though your mean annual temperature is below 0 degrees Celsius, so 32 Fahrenheit, sorry, even though your mean annual temperature is below freezing, sometimes in summer, especially like in interior Alaska, it might get so hot at low elevation that all the snow melts away and therefore you don't form any ice. The second important factor is precipitation. If you look at a map of Alaska, most of the glaciers and the biggest glaciers are already located in the south and southeast. That's because here, south, you have the Pacific Ocean that's dumping a whole lot of water on those mountains. The air is super humid, and you have these mountains that are blocking the clouds, literally blocking the precipitation, literally blocking the humidity, sorry. So as those very moist air masses encounter the mountains, they just drop everything they have. And you have, for example, the town of Yakutat that's here is, if I'm not mistaken, the wettest town in the US, aside from one in Hawaii. But basically, the southeastern coast of Alaska is completely drenched. It's always raining or snowing. And because you have very high mountains, and thus annual mean temperatures that are below zero and a lot of precipitation, you have a lot of snow. And if you have a lot of snow that does not melt away, you create a lot of glaciers, and big glaciers in particular. If you go to the Brooks Range, for example, the Brooks Range has some glaciers, but it's very, very dry. So it doesn't necessarily get too hot in the summer or hot enough to melt everything, but it's just that it doesn't snow that much. And if we look at Fairbanks, it's not necessarily a particularly wet area, but it does get too hot in the summer to save any ice.